Welcome to the Massive Change Show. I'm Justin Foster.
And I'm Dr. Virginia Lacayo. In each episode, we have conversation with leaders who are getting in some good trouble by challenging paradigms and shaking the system.
And after each conversation, the episode shifts to the second show, where Virginia and I chat about what we learned from the guest.
If you know of any leaders who will make a great guest, please introduce us.
And of course, if you enjoy the show, please like, share, and leave a review.
Thanks for listening.
In this episode of the Massive Change Show, we visit with Lori Saitz about how vulnerability is the real work of leadership and how her use of internal podcasting is a key tool for creating belonging, trust, and human connection inside companies. Enjoy the show. Welcome, Lori, to the Massive Change Show. So good to have you on. We were talking about before we hit record that the scheduling gods, we'd angered them at some point. So as you said, everything happens at its own time. So the only pressure here is that you be especially brilliant because the schedule of our scheduling delays.
Yes.
So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Glad we could finally coordinate.
You're already a veteran podcaster yourself, and you have a very interesting business of doing internal podcasting as a form of communication. So, I'm not going to do we don't need to do the usual like hygiene stuff here, but it's always good to know, like, how did you get here? What's your story? Give us like the 2-minute, 3 shots of tequila version of the Lori story.
Okay. Wow. Well, I started life as a really shy child. And that tidbit is interesting because when I meet people now and I'm hosting my own show and I'm speaking on stages, people can't believe that I was ever shy or that I consider myself an introvert, which is a whole other conversation about, where you draw your energy from. But started life as a super shy child. And if I didn't know you, I wouldn't talk to you or talk in your presence. But something happened, something flipped the moment my parents dropped me off at college and drove away. And I think it was because then I didn't have anybody else to speak for, and I had to step into being my own person. And I did. And then every decade, I guess, as I've gotten older, I've grown into who I've become now. And I think that comes with confidence. Confidence comes with maturity a lot of times.
Yeah, that's good.
And experience, just a brief comment. Also experience. I relate with what you said. I think that we don't think that we're capable of doing things until we try and we get the results. And even if it's not the results we wanted, the fact that we did it is enough to start building that confidence to do it. We might not, like, I'm talking for the people that are listening to us right now. It's like, as entrepreneurs, we're challenged to do a lot of things that are scary. And we said, well, I don't have the confidence to do that. But then you start doing it, and the confidence is a byproduct of that.
Yes, exactly. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking, I wonder if some of this confidence would have come had I not stepped into the role of an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So speaking of entrepreneur, we interview system shakers on this show, and sometimes the way that the system shaker makes a living is the same thing as what makes them shake the system. Sometimes it's separate things, and we'll discover that with you in a moment. But what I think would be helpful for the audience is, like, what do you do to get paid? Because you're kind of a polymath. There's a lot of different things that you do. So share a little bit about as an entrepreneur, what your revenue streams or your business model is.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that I host my own podcast. I think, didn't you mention that?
I did.
That might've been before the show, before we started recording. Okay. So I do host my own podcast. I've been doing that for more than 4 years. And the comments that I've gotten through that experience have just kind of pointed it out to me that this is really my area of genius. And so back at the beginning of this year, I started reevaluating what is it that I love to do the most. And it is holding space and having conversations with people. And then I thought, well, how can my podcast is a passion project. I don't make money from it, but how can I take this idea and find a way to get paid for it? And that's where I came to the idea of what if I started hosting podcasts, internal podcasts for mid-sized companies. And remember back in the day, we used to have printed company newsletters.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think very many companies have them anymore. And if they did, nobody would be reading them. But this is the modern, updated audio version of that because everybody is now conditioned to listen to podcasts.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, let's dig into the
Yeah.
system shaker questions. I'll toss it over to my co-host and always.
And I think it's gonna, I mean, I'm really interested to hear more about how that works and has been the reaction of people about that. But in that line, what is that big dangerous idea that you have that will probably piss off most or a lot of powerful people?
It's twofold. One, that that adults can be treated as adults and humans.
Shockingly controversial.
I'm thinking about this, and corporations and organizations are my clients, and yet so many of them you have to put in for time off or ask if you can leave early. And can we all just operate as adults, responsible adults? And I realize that maybe not everybody is a responsible adult, but if we treated them as if they would, maybe they would act accordingly. And the second part of that is I really, and even more strongly feel, because if we did this second thing, the first thing would happen more, is teaching people how to think, not what to think, how to think, how to be more analytical about the information that's coming at them. And this is especially important now because we have so much information coming at us all the time. And it's very easy to default to, oh, well, what are they doing? Let me just do that, or think that, or believe that, or follow that line of action.
So why do you think that's dangerous? When you think about companies and corporate leaders and stuff that you're talking to, and so you summarize that as treat humans like humans and teach them how to think, not what to think. Why would a corporate, because the three of us are like, well, no shit, those are good things.
Right.
But the funny thing is they are dangerous, but say why.
It's dangerous, not just in corporations, I think in society. It's why we have organized religion, why we have the political structure we have, is because it allows the people in power to maintain their power. If the people below them, I say that, everybody's, but had the ability to think, then maybe they wouldn't still be in power.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You know a lot about that, Virginia.
Yes. So it challenged directly the hierarchy that is established using the ignorance or the lack of capacity for people to develop a critical thinking skill.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
When you keep people stupid, it's easier to control them.
Yeah.
It's the circus approach of the Roman Empire, right? Let's keep them entertained and dumb them down, and is what they're easy to control and oppress. Yes.
Yeah.
And you probably see this, Lori, go into your work with culture too, where culture to many executives, usually dudes, is like Taco Tuesday, and we're gonna have like an outing, to the park or something, whatever. The picnic, company picnic, and that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with those things, but that's not culture. That's what I call being nice to the cows, which I'll explain that. I'll explain that in the second show.
It's entertainment. So this is, there are dangerous ideas indeed, and how you propose to apply those ideas. because it became dangerous when it's not just somebody's thinking about it, but actually implementing them and inviting other people to practice them. So what is your proposal for that?
Teach people how to get in touch with their inner voice.
Mm.
And
Through the podcast?
no, actually, one of the segments of my internal podcasts, one of the pieces of my program involves doing either bonus episodes or maybe it's the fourth one of the month kind of thing, where we do an episode on perhaps a breathing technique, a calming technique. I may hesitate to call it meditation in corporate environments because they might not like that word, but that's essentially what it is. We're teaching people how to maintain peace and calm no matter what's going on around them. And a lot of times for a lot of people, for me specifically, and other people that I've taught techniques to, it is meditation, but it could be journaling. It could be walking in nature. It could be anything that helps ground you and reclaim the calm that is, it's innate in everybody, but most people are very out of touch with it because we've been conditioned to not pay attention to it.
Well, that's a good segue into kind of a setup for the second system shaker question about the challenges that you face with these ideas. And I'm curious, when you're pitching or you're talking to a company about coming in and doing internal podcasting, and we know that the dangerous ideas are to treat people like humans and teach them how to think, or critical thinking, as Virginia mentioned. So I'm kind of leading the witness here, but how often are you told what you can and cannot talk about on those podcasts?
That hasn't been as much an issue. Before I started focusing on internal podcasting, what I was doing was teaching workshops on how to maintain calm or stay calm in the chaos, or I have another one called Zen Leadership. And the biggest pushback that I would get from it is, we don't have time for this. Yes, we need it. Everybody needs to learn how to calm down and be more focused. And maybe they understood that it would lead to better productivity, which leads to more profitability. Here's where the disconnect comes in, but we don't have time for it. Wait, what? A 90-minute workshop that's going to help everybody feel better, work better, and ultimately make your company more profitable, but you don't have time for it. Okay.
And save time.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yes.
multiply your time.
Right, because one of the techniques is that I get really passionate about is that you can time block your calendar all you want. You talk about time management, got all the pretty colors, but if you're still thinking about the argument you had with your partner last night, or the guy who cut you off in traffic this morning, you're going to have a very hard time sitting down and focusing on creating that client proposal. So you block the time for it, but your mind isn't there. So you're right, Virginia. It's now taking you 4 hours when it should have taken you 2 if you had been able to focus better.
Yeah. So looping that back around to then the internal podcasting offering, and knowing that the idea of treating humans like humans, what challenges are you facing? And these could be practical things. It could be marketing or branding related. They could be pricing. So it doesn't always have to be like super agitating challenges. It's just like, what are your challenges with spreading the word about this offer?
The biggest challenge for me so far to date, although I may have found a solution for it, is getting conversations with the right people. Because my ultimate people to talk to are either the CEOs of these companies, because if they are not on board, it's not going to work. We're doing interviews with C-suite executives as a way to humanize them. So if they're not on board, it's not going to work. And the other is with chief people officers who are extremely busy. Yeah. And so again, it's this time crunch on their side. I don't have time, or getting them to even read an email, which is the whole point of hosting a podcast, is because nobody reads
Yeah.
emails anymore. Well, how do I have to reach out to them somehow initially, whether it's through LinkedIn or emails or whatever it is getting their ear has been my biggest challenge.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's it's the attention economy, you know, that's a term
Right.
that's been around for a long time. But it's also like people are operating, their nervous systems are operating often, even if they're, you know, they got money in the bank and, you know, a nice house and everything, their nervous systems are operating at the lowest end of Maslow's hierarchy, which means, you know, and busy people get hit on like the only women in an oil town, you know. So they've heard every pickup line there is. And I was listening to Mark Cuban recently talk about like this, still sending an email that's really short and direct is probably still the best way, you know, or a handwritten letter. He's talked about that
Yeah.
too, you know,
Yeah.
because somebody's going to open it.
Right. Yes. And I actually, had not heard that from Mark Cuban, but I've heard it. I also have more than 25 years of marketing background. So I've heard a lot of marketing
Yeah.
ideas. That short email, I did that earlier this week. I got 0 response.
Yeah.
Interesting. But I do love direct marketing, or contact marketing is another term for it. And the challenge there is getting, now that people work remotely, is how do you get their address, because they're not at corporate. You can get the address for corporate, but that's not where they are. So how do you get, you know, how do you get their address so that you could send them something really cool like this little
Look at that.
ribbon
Yeah.
with, I have the coolest idea for this. It's not my idea, but of putting a letter in it and saying, I pre-threw it away for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Early on in my work doing, you know, I started off teaching word of mouth marketing and kind of guerrilla marketing, they used to call it. Which is, so is one of the things that we did is we ordered for this client, we ordered the pizzas and we put their CV or like their offering of what they were doing. It was an IT services company. We put the flyer on the inside in like a wrap so it didn't get pizza on it, and we put that inside. And you know, if you did that now, it would show up on Instagram. This was pre-social media. This is like 2003, you know. And that, anyway, it worked. He got a lot of business. You know, it's like clever still works.
100%. I love direct marketing that way, because it is not common anymore.
Yeah.
But then how do you get the right person's address?
Yeah, exactly. So keeping in the line of challenges, if we look at this bigger idea of culture, business culture, and I'm curious what your perspective is around the mindset or narratives that a corporate executive has about being humanized themselves. Because I've often said that if you think if the zombie apocalypse has already happened, just go to any C-suite. You know, they're very well dressed zombies many times. And so what is their own narratives about being humanized? And then number 2 related to that is, how do those narratives affect how they humanize others?
The clients that I'm looking for are not afraid to be humanized.
Right. But assume that if that's true for you, but you're looking at this more from a social, almost like a social commentary standpoint. If you think of all the executives you know, and this idea of being humanized, what would be a narrative? What are narratives they have, where they're saying that that's something that would make them uncomfortable or whatever?
It would make them. It makes them uncomfortable because it requires them to be vulnerable, and for a lot of people, vulnerability equals weakness. Even though studies have been done that show that people respect others who are vulnerable more than they respect those who haven't shown vulnerability. And so even knowing that, though, people are still reluctant to be vulnerable.
Have you noticed a difference? Have you noticed a difference between men and women? Men and women, yeah.
I don't know if
in
I've
terms of
personally noticed a difference. I could just from the guests I've had on my show, it hasn't mattered.
Mm,
They've all been willing to be vulnerable, even if they didn't
mm,
expect to be when they came on. They get in my
hmm
studio and then they lay it out anyway.
hmm
So
Have you?
I think it's a matter of giving them the opportunity and helping people feel safe. And so
Mm,
to your point, leadership in organizations does not feel safe enough to be vulnerable, whether that what's the word I'm looking for? Like whether that safeness is coming
hmm
from internally, or if they have to answer to a board, or whoever else is involved, there's a fear behind showing that
mm,
vulnerability. Not, I think that fear keeps them from doing it more than anything else.
yeah, which is interesting because all the studies, surveys, so you mentioned this a little bit, is they show that what most people want from their boss is for them to be real.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, don't bullshit me. If you're having a bad
Right.
day, just tell me, or whatever you
Yeah.
need me. Don't be passive aggressive. Like all the things we'd want in a normal, healthy relationship too. So the second
Yes.
part of
And
that question, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, and I just want to point out, this isn't this ask to be vulnerable, ask to be real, is not that you come in wearing your heart on your sleeve every day and
Hmm
telling everybody, every horrible, sad thing that's happening in your life.
Right.
We're not going
Yeah,
that far,
that's
but
called
just being
drama.
real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Not bringing drama, just reality.
Yeah. That's interesting. So um I guess let's shift to I'll throw it back to you, Virginia, for the third
the
question
third question.
about impact. Yeah.
So what is some measurable impact that you would like to see with your work and sometime in your lifetime?
Hmm. Think about if everyone, okay, let's maybe not even go as far as everyone. Think about if a high percentage more people could feel safe in their own skin, could feel safe and do that by tapping into that inner wisdom, that place of peace within themselves, and then also feeling safe in their work environment, in their life environment. If everybody could find that peace,
Mm,
what would our world look like?
mm,
Mm,
It would be a very
yeah.
different place if
mm,
everyone, I don't want to say everyone just sticks to their own business. That's not what we're talking about, but it is sticking to your own business. It's like, how do you manage yourself? How do you self regulate? How do you manage your emotions and your feelings of overwhelm? And there are, all of these tools that we could teach people to do this. In fact, I believe we should be teaching them in grammar school
Yeah. hmm
to start with. My mom introduced my brother and me to meditation, took us to a meditation course when I was 10 years old. So I've
Wow.
had this as a foundation. I didn't necessarily use it, but it was in there in the subconscious somewhere as a foundation. What would our world look like if people could learn how to, instead of getting angry, instead of getting frustrated, and again, these are normal human emotions, but instead of
hmm
reacting and in responding instead of reacting.
Yes. Yeah. It's no coincidence that SEL, are you familiar with SEL in the schools in curriculum?
No.
SEL is social emotional learning.
Okay.
And it's being targeted by the current administration and their supporters in red states that are, and think about that, they're going after curriculum that is teaching kids to have social and emotional intelligence.
yeah.
What? I don't even have words.
Me neither. Me neither. Really
What?
beyond that, but it goes to like when I think about what you said about the impact, and then apply that to a percentage of business leaders that are more vulnerable, that are they're more they know it's their responsibility to help make the culture of the workplace a safe place to be yourself. That alone, I mean, this whole the United States, everything runs out of the business world. And so if the business world decided like, fuck this shit, we're not doing this anymore. We're not tolerating this anymore. And there was a tipping point of there were more, like more Mark Cubans as an example, or Jessica Albas, or other CEOs and company leaders that are willing to think this way and implement it this way, the impact would be enormous.
Yeah.
And it's probably a leading indicator. So the follow-up other impact is when you see when you do implement a internal podcast, what's kind of the impact you see of that in a company? Like what happens, and sometimes it could be even energetically, like you feel it. Like what's the shift that you see?
It's what we're doing is we're helping build connection and community. And when you have leaders who are talking about their initiatives and talking directly, so it's not filtering through like an old school game of telephone, people are understanding what's happening in the company, what's going on, why is this the initiative for this quarter, or why are these decisions being made. When they can understand and then buy into it, I mean, we're helping them. We're building a foundation of understanding and trust. When the C-suite leaders are humanized, the people trust them more because now they feel like they know them and they're not just some character sitting up in the White Tower. That's first. And then we're doing interviews with employees so they can get to know each other on a more personal basis. And so again, we're building bridges for collaboration and ultimately building connection and community. And everybody, it's a human need, or a human, I guess, need, maybe desire to feel like you belong.
Yeah.
You can look at a variety of ills in society and trace them back to those people not feeling like they belong.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So we'll close. I want to close with this question to kind of set it up so people understand, how they can support you and the work you're doing in the world. Is how would someone know that their company or their executive team is ready for what you do? Like, what would be a couple of the indicators?
It is the responsibility of the CEO, whether they want to accept it or not, to maintain corporate culture, to amplify corporate culture. It starts at the top. And so if the people in an organization are not all on the same page, if they're not all excited about what they're doing, if they don't understand the mission and the vision of the organization, that's one indicator that that could be improved. And it's a lot of companies I'm looking to work with are fast growing, because here's the thing. So when they had 50 or 100 people, everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew what was going on. Everyone was on the same page.
Right.
C-suite could talk to everybody directly. As a company is growing, that starts slipping away, because if you have 500, 1,000 people, you can't be one-to-one with everybody all the time. And internal podcasts allow you to do that, or at least to still feel like you're doing that at scale.
Right.
So fast growing, human-centric companies, because again, if they don't care about corporate culture and they just want workhorses that they're just going to beat until they fall, until they quit, that's not going to be a good fit. But the companies that care, the conscious business leaders, those are my people.
Yeah, the ones that wouldn't be afraid of the word meditation.
That wouldn't be afraid of the word meditation, and that are not afraid to be vulnerable. And lead from that place.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid of other people being themselves.
Yes.
And
right.
feeling
Because
free.
If you're not afraid of being vulnerable, then presumably you wouldn't be afraid of your people bringing their humanness to work as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Well, thank you for the conversation. we'll see each other down the road, I'm sure. And
Well,
go ahead, Virginia.
wait. Yeah. How can they find you? I mean, if they listen to this and they say, like, that's me and I love that idea, how can they find you?
The best place to find
Can
me
you?
is on LinkedIn because I
Okay.
am on there all the time,
Okay.
and that
I
is
will link to that in the show notes.
that's my best point of contact. Thank you.
Very, very good. Well, we're gonna say goodbye to you and go to the second show,
Mhm.
which is where we talk about you behind your back. No, I'm just kidding. Uh,
Talk all you want. I will be
uh,
interested to hear what you got to
yeah.
say.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. Talk to you
Thank you,
later.
Thank
Virginia.
you.
Thanks, Justin. Bye.
Well, um, that was very interesting. I never heard of internal podcast approach or project, and I thought that's fascinating for many reasons. I mean, when I think of, it's true that we don't have memos anymore. We don't read memos anymore. We don't even read emails. We're overloaded with emails, especially at the
Hmm.
organization level, work emails and everybody responding. And it gets confusing, overwhelming, and nothing is more human than actually listen to somebody's voice and
Hmm.
hearing their tone and having things explained to you, let's say new politics or new policies or new procedures
Hmm.
or whatever is the changes in the organization from a human perspective, and having someone explain it in with words is
Hmm.
way easier or better than by writing. So I think that is, and for connecting with other people, I think that is a brilliant idea. I love
Yeah.
that. And I think even, I mean, obviously having somebody hosting your podcast, your internal podcast is very useful, especially when you have a big organization. But I'm thinking of even small organizations that
Hmm.
having and being creative. I think that we as entrepreneurs, we can think more of how can I keep a way of communicating with my team and my people
Hmm.
in a way that is intimate, that doesn't really require that much work. Because when you think about it, it can be a 15 minutes
Hmm.
podcast every week and people can take turns, but is an invitation to think in a creative way of
Hmm.
keeping that human communication and connection going on, no matter how fast you grow. And
Right.
so I think that that's one of my favorite takeaways from this conversation.
Well, I think what makes it extra interesting is that it's a two-way conversation in the sense that the CEO is being or executive or whatever is being interviewed. And in corporate for years, there was the Monday morning memo was the email that went out from the CEO, or then things like webcasts came along, and there was the company webcast. Many companies still today have studios in their corporate
Mhm.
offices where the CEO, or they have shareholder meetings and things like that, but it's all very one way. It's a broadcast.
Yeah.
And so what that means is that it's going to be an interview. It's a conversation, which is a different access is an entirely different part of the brain, and into itself is a kind of vulnerability. um, so I want to also I think the main thing is that that I thought was interesting is when she talked about her dangerous idea of that treating humans like humans, and we all kind of laugh like no shit, but and I mentioned the idea of being nice to the cows, and I wanted to follow up on that because I think a lot of CEOs, executives, business leaders have the intention of humanizing people. There's an effort to like show compassion, or make people feel safe, or be inclusive, and there's an effort, but
Yeah, nobody will admit that they're treating people as workhorses or
yeah, I mean,
cows.
there would be some, like there's some people like well, the guy from Shark Tank, Mr. Wonderful, where he's very clearly like doesn't really care. There's a lot of CEOs that are still like, the like House, like Dr. House, like they
Mhm.
just don't care. Um, but what I think is interesting is even challenging the idea as, are you treating humans like humans, or are you just being nice to the cows? And nice to the cows is comes from the dairy farmers world, and they learned that if you're nice to the cows, if you have, and if people don't know this about modern dairies, they're like luxury spas for dairy cows. They have like foot washers and music and perfect temperature control and all of this stuff, because they found that the safer and more taken care of the cow feels, the more she produces milk, more milk she produces, which is great. And that's better than, unethical uh, practices. But that's very different than treating humans like humans.
Yeah.
And I think that to me is the subset of the more dangerous idea of like, what does that really mean
Yeah.
to and as you said too earlier about liberate people to choose to create their own future, to bring in autonomy, what our mutual dear friend Alan Prussian calls reciprocating authority, um,
Yeah.
and what you talk about with systemic liberation and things like that. Those are all things that are like the next level of really treating humans like humans.
Yeah, and I will say that that is start with yourself as a leader as well. I mean, one of the things that I work with leaders when I coach them is the concept of self-care. And self-care not as run to the spa and get a massage when you're already burned out or when you're already collapsing, or self-care is things like stop and eat, not in front of
Mhm.
your computer, but have actually lunch on a table, and better if it's with another human person, and
Yeah.
have a conversation. That is self-care, and it's more sleep, like really invest time on sleeping. Is nothing can substitute that. So that's the difference between treating yourself as be nice with your own cow, with yourself as a
Mhm.
cow, versus having really authentic self-care. And that's the same thing applies to to your team and the other people. Is not just being nice when you see them, when after exploiting them for a month and then you have a retreat or you have a picnic. It's not, no, how can we start by avoiding the damage in the first place,
Yes,
preventing the
right.
damage and not just repairing the damage.
Yes, yes. And it's an ancient idea of how you treat yourself is ultimately how you're going to treat others,
Yeah.
and that if if you if you don't know who you really are, and is as a human, or your role as a leader is just kind of an archetype to cover up, like, so you don't have to deal with your inner shit, you're very much limited on how far you can treat humans like humans, especially if you follow like Maslow's hierarchy. It's like, okay, yes, we generally know that we should pay our employees and make sure they have safe work conditions. That's pretty much the norm now, generally speaking. But you go to the next one about, she'd mentioned belonging. But
Mhm.
what if you went to the third level of Maslow's hierarchy? Well, you can't go there if you don't go there. If you're not doing the inner work and you're trying to get to self-actualization, that's not going to happen. Um, I just think it's interesting that her work with internal podcasts is a little bit of a Trojan horse in some ways, to these ideas. Like, if you're willing to have a conversation that doesn't have a bunch of talking points and scripts and shit,
Yeah.
you're likely much more interested in the stories that people have to tell. And if you're interested in stories, you're going to have an awesome culture. It's sort of, you can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
Any other takeaways to share?
Yeah, actually, one before we close this, I have a question for you, because
Oh,
the other part of the conversation that was I I got very intrigued and interested, and you are more an expert of that on that than me, is about the marketing part.
okay.
That having thinking about direct marketing and like the unusual ways, like being really creative, like the little garbage
Hmm.
can and the pizza box and things like that to approach people. What do you think now with social media, that was something that was working and was
Hmm.
popular, let's say, at some point in history. And then social media changed
Hmm.
that and we became more massive. But within the mass media, we're trying to personalize the approach and
Hmm.
having like an intimacy kind of relationship with our potential customers or our audience using a mass media communication or a mass media approach. How that approach of direct marketing and direct contact and creative one-on-one ways to approach people, how that fits into this practice that is happening today in marketing. That is that will be completely, it's something that is people are doing or they're not doing it or it will work. What do you
Hmm.
think about that?
Well, I think interestingly, it comes back to SEL, to social and emotional learning, because you have to be equipped with a kind of intuitive intelligence to extract from someone's public footprint kind of what their business love language is.
Hmm.
So this is what I teach clients about this is almost the entire system of direct marketing is set up with the idea of like almost like like deep sea fishing with nets. You throw a big net and you bring everything in and you pick out what you want and throw the rest back. And the funnel model is shaped like a net. That way, it's a fish trap, and it's very dehumanizing. It's in many ways, to me, in my opinion, can be quite unethical, a form of manipulation. Um, and but using the fishing metaphor, it's fly fishing. It's not pond fishing, where you throw the line out and it's got a bobber and you sit there and you bring a book or something and wait for a fish to be hungry enough to swim by, and that's it's not that. It's not net trawl fishing or dynamite fishing. It's fly fishing, and fly fishing is very precise, and there's a precision here. It takes a certain kind of tenacity. So desperation is the enemy of this. So if you're like, I've got to go get a deal now, and you don't have a big network, and you don't have a bunch of fishing lines of different lines in the water, that's the desperation is going to. You see this on shows like Alone, survival shows, where they're desperate to catch a fish. It's almost like a energetic pheromone that goes out where the fish are like, ew, I don't want to be a part of that. So specifically, is you can look at someone's social footprint, the way that they show up in the world or what they talk about, and you can kind of get a sense of what they would respond to. So it could be it could be a gift. It could be, you send them a book, or it could be you offer to connect them with someone, or you invite them to be on a podcast. Like, you have to be customized, and you have to be customized, and you have to be persistent, and and there's sort of the theory of like 3 attempts and walk away. At least you made contact. Maybe they'll check their inbox or their LinkedIn or their Instagram direct. You know, the other part of this is tone is so essential, because if you're it's the you know creepy, cheesy, or boring, which is that any one of those three is going to harm it's going to hurt it's going to hurt that engagement, because marketing is no longer about what marketing you do. It's the way you use marketing.
Mhm.
So the fake customization is an example. It's like that, where it comes into your inbox and it's like, I was talking to my boss the other day about you. I was like, come on, don't bullshit me. And this is why it goes back to social emotional intelligence, is like, is you got to customize it. What this means is the system is a relationship nurturing system. It is not a lead management system. It's a pipeline, I guess, but it's really looking at it through the lens of relationship management. And like, as you know, I teach clients a scoring system for that, two different columns. And probably by the time this gets published, it'll be announced as I've got a new cohort I'm launching called F the Formula. And one of the modules is about this topic, is about like, how do you really in a ethical, intentional, strategic, and surgical way, how do you go connect with people instead of waiting for the fish to jump in the boat? You know, and there's a whole mindset behind it and a whole method. I just gave a few like a few teasers about it.
Yeah, and I think this is important and it's fascinating, especially for people that we care more about the serving people. We
Mm-hmm.
as entrepreneurs and especially conscious business owners, we care more about providing a service to serve others, to be useful, to contribute, to do what we love to do. And we don't want to invest that much time and effort in learning formulas that are that doesn't fit with that are completely
Yes.
foreign to our mission and vision and our values. And I think we got to the point where before it was a lot about creativity, then it became a lot about the formulas and the funnels and like how to
Mm-hmm.
beat the algorithm and all that.
Yeah.
And we got lost in the process. And now we are looking for, many of us are looking for how we get out of that
Mm-hmm.
system, how we get,
Yeah.
how we step out of that system and let other people fight in the noise and in the, the ocean of confusion and overwhelming overload of information, and go back to the roots and go back to the personal and go back
Right.
to let's build relationship, let's do things authentically. And we don't know how to do it anymore because it's not what is being taught in in
Yes.
general in the
Yes.
market
Yeah.
is the
Yes.
opposite. So this is a good way to go back to the roots and do things right again.
Yeah. Well, let's stop there.
Yeah,
And that was fun. And people will learn much more about this coming soon. Thank you very much.
thank you.